So the Green Leadership Series is a partnership between the Green School and the Bridge with Earth Companies. And Fomo is going to talk a little bit more about Earth Company, but for us here from the Bridge, it's just such an honor to have Earth Company as a partner and to have, such amazing speakers line up that they bring to us. So today we're going to have Aparna talking to us. Another great talk and another great session. I'm super happy to have you guys here.
Great. Thank you, Carol and the Bridge team for putting this together. This, I believe, is number 9 in the Green Leadership Series that we started June, July last year. So it's great that this is ongoing. It wasn't a one-off thing and we can keep doing this. It's a real pleasure to be doing this with the Bridge team. So thank you. So my name is Tomo, co-founder of Earth Company. I'm based in Ubud, just about 20-25 minutes from where the Green School team is. And I'm connecting from our eco hotel called Mana, Earthy Paradise. So just want to share a little bit about Earth Company and also how we're connected to Aparna. So as a social enterprise, Earth Company has been around for about 7.5 years. We do 3 things. We run an accelerator program called Impact Heroes program. We also run an education professional development program called Impact Academy. And then we run an eco hotel called Mana Earthy Paradise in Ubud, Bali. As part of our Impact Heroes program, we select one Impact Hero per year. We support them for a 3-year period. We do fundraising on behalf of them. We do very much customized support for these amazing change makers. And in addition to selecting one Impact Hero and supporting for a 3-year period, our Impact Hero finalist community is actually really expanding. We started supporting a cohort since last year. And Aparna is part of this year's cohort of 7 amazing change makers from all around the Asia Pacific. We had Gary from Sungai Watch speak as part of the Green Leadership Series last month. And that was very exciting because it was the first in-person event at the Bridge. We have Aparna today. We'll have the other speakers lined up for the following months. So we just started this journey together with these 7 change makers last month. And so we're getting to know them very well and sharing insights and knowledge that will be helpful for them. And it's been a real fun ride so far and really looking forward to working with them. And moving on to Aparna. We received many applications as part of the Impact Hero 2022 last year. And Aparna's application was definitely one of the brightest. And we were really intrigued and impressed by how she's taking this ethical fashion brand, Toraja Melo, to the next phase. And one thing that I definitely want everyone to kind of listen to and even ask questions about is really kind of the new phase that Toraja Melo is entering into, right? And so Toraja Melo is founded by Ibu Dini, and now Aparna is the CEO. So they've actually gone through this transition. And I think for social enterprises, it's real interesting and challenge to go through that kind of leadership succession. So I'm really curious how this will, how Aparna's leadership will really expand and contribute to the growth of Toraja Melo. We see a lot of potential in Toraja Melo, as well as this sector that's actually growing in Indonesia. So with that, I want to give Aparna the floor for her presentation, and then we'll do a Q&A towards the end. So thank you, and yeah.
Thank you, Tomo, and very kind words. I hope I live up to them. But anyway, so first a short intro about myself. Everyone, though Tomo has already given a highlight. So I'm Aparna. I'm CEO of Toraja Melo. I identify as an highly unapologetic feminist, a vegan, an environmentalist, and of course a student for life, because I think we are at a stage where we have to constantly keep learning and evolving. And therefore, I think it's something that, it's part of my reality. And every day I end up, learning something or making a mistake that teaches me something. So that's me. And now I'm going to share about Toraja Melo. And of course, this session is about living slowly or slow fashion and why we all need to embrace it. And especially, I think for this audience, I feel this is so critical because you're all part of a change making community already. So which means that if you embrace and believe it, then you will then amplify this impact and take this mission ahead, because we all need to play our role, right? And it's not just meant to be stronghold for certain people. So without further ado, let me share my screen and as I'll be sharing, I think we have time for Q&A at the end. So please do park your questions right towards the end. And if we do run out of time for your questions, you'll have my contact details. I'm more than happy to share. And I'm by no means, disclaimer, an expert on slow fashion. As I said, we are constantly learning, but we really need to start taking some strong steps is what I'm here to share. A bit about Toraja Melo. So we are an ethical slow lifestyle brand, and we work with rural and remote women weavers collectives across Indonesia. And our thesis has been to work towards alleviating systemic poverty and preventing outward migration, because we want these rural indigenous women to survive and thrive where they are and not emigrate to seek a better life, which usually does not end up being a better life. And our values are, of course, around community. So we believe in collective movement and not individuals, right? For us, quality is really, really important. So in what we do and what we share and what we work with, then integrity. So walking the talk, telling the truth, saying where we are and being humble about it and making changes. Taking actions with a purpose, so being very mindful of the path we have undertaken. And finally, because we work with extremely remote areas where there are a lot of challenges, we have to have compassion because they don't have the conveniences and the comfort that we might have sitting in, urban areas or, urban settings with all facilities. And therefore, for us to work with them requires a really high amount of compassion. And I'll be very honest, as someone who used to run, who used to be in corporate, it was quite tough for me, but I am working on it, right? Becoming more and more compassionate. And what we do is we are pretty different from other kinds of weaving. So we work with 100% backstrap loom weaving, which is essentially only done by women. And it's not automated. It's basically women using the tension from their hands and pulling the loom, hands and legs, and that's how they weave. And it's essentially a practice that's been passed on for thousands of years across 300 ethnic groups that actually exist in Indonesia. So it's literally part of cultural heritage of this beautiful country. And currently we are working with about 1,100. The number keeps going up and down as more and more get added, or they move to certain stages across outlying areas. So essentially, largely East Indonesia, NTT, Sulawesi, West Timor, and we will be also moving to Papua, Kalimantan, and other areas as we scope more and more communities. And how we work with them is we buy their weaving and we convert it into fashion products and we give them access to the market. What are we? Again, slow ethical lifestyle brand. Our aim is to minimize waste as much as possible. So whatever we create, we try to repurpose it into something else, right? If there is wastage, we are moving towards more and more greener practices. It's a tough journey, but we are on it. And also essentially moving more and more to plant-based. So because we believe in fair treatment of people, animals, and of course the planet. I will just share about our thesis. So who do we work with? So we are not in Java. There's a strong reason for that, because we want to work in areas which are largely neglected by development or government support. We work in areas where there is actually a trend of migration. So women leave their communities because they don't have employment within, and also ones which have actually a capacity and both culture of weaving, because that's our entry point. And that's how we want to continue. We believe that environmental, social, and cultural sustainability, they are interlinked, and you can't work on one without, keeping in view the other. And therefore, now keeping in view that we find more and more eco and sustainable practices within the communities we work with has become quite critical for us. So that's about Toraja Melo. I hope it gave you a primer. Now let's talk about fashion and slow fashion. And that's what I'm here, to talk to you about. So just took it from Wikipedia, keeping it simple, it's fashion has come about to be a way of, self-expression, autonomy, right? And we express it with whatever we wear, right? And honestly, it's become something that's replaced the three critical things we have in life, which is food, clothing, and shelter. So clothing has become, eponymous with, say, fashion. And therefore, it's become something that, we reflect our personality, our style with. And therefore, the concept of following trends has also gotten associated with, what we call as fashion. What has it become? The current times we live in is Fomo. I'm sure you all have heard of the term, which is fear of missing out. So basically, we all want to buy what is the latest. Otherwise, you're not updated. You're not cool anymore. It's become a status symbol. If you've not followed what's happening, then, you've not arrived. You're not on the scene. We've been, I think, conditioned to buy more because we feel the more we consume, the better it is. And, the more, I think, satiated we feel, right? And then, of course, when you are buying more, you look for better deals. So also the conditioning that has happened is we want to buy cheap so that we can buy more, and another word for cheap, you could say affordable, right? And then the other part that's gotten associated is that fashion doesn't need to be comfortable. So a lot of people wear very uncomfortable clothes, but because it's fashionable, we tend to embrace it. And fast fashion, which is basically rampant everywhere, you have these really large brands, is really, ruling the roost. So this is the reality we are facing with. And before I move to the next slide, I have to tell you that me taking over Toraja Melo is sort of interesting contradiction, because by these definitions, I am actually the least fashionable person around. I like comfort. I like wearing easy. And currently what I'm wearing is also, the top is hand-me-down. I borrowed it from a friend. And of course, the scarf is from Toraja Melo. So essentially, I am possibly defying all these, norms that fashion has laid out as to what it should be. But, that's what I've chosen to embrace as my identity. And just moving. Yes. Now, so that is what fast fashion has become. And yes, these are some depressing facts, but I think I have to share because they are reality. And we all need to be aware of, certain facts and numbers. I don't want to distract you. I'll make this deck available to you all, but I'll just touch upon some key points that we don't basically use more than 50%, around 50% of our average wardrobe, right? We buy, but we are not using. Indonesia's textile waste is contributing more and more to the tons of, waste that Indonesia has already. We millennials, we are biggest consumers of fast fashion, right? And because we have succumbed to this whole, aura. And I think the last one to note is that we are part of the G20, and Indonesia is hosting G20, is the fact that Indonesia has contributed almost 30% in water pollution due to our textile production. And this, of course, is a stat from 2015. But honestly, it's only gotten worse. And ironically, all these facts, all these seem incredible, is the fact that while we are buying more, we are wearing them for shorter periods, which means you have more clothes lying unused, going to waste, and you just keep on buying, but you don't really use. And so the interesting part is, while we might have more money at disposal and we might consume more, right? We are heading towards a future where we really might not be in a situation to consume so much, because we are in such a cycle of make waste that we might not be able to enjoy those items that we buy or our progeny, and therefore it's something that we should start thinking about. So what do we do, right? Because of course I came in and now I've shared some very depressing facts, and I think no one enjoys being told that, things are a mess and, you're all the cause of it. So either we give up and continue as we are, which is currently also happening globally, right? We have so many climate change deniers and anti-maskers and anti-vaxxers and people just, keep continuing that. Or we actually start to rethink, right? Sorry, there's a mistake. It should be as an individual. So I was working, so apologies. But so we start rethinking, and let's pause here. Is what could you start rethinking about? Is what is your definition of fashion, and whether you need to follow what you've been told that you should follow. And I think it starts from a simple question: is how much do I really need? Because if I'm not really using all the clothes in my wardrobe, then do I really need that? Am I wearing that? And one key question I think which confuses us all is differentiating between want and a need. Do we really need that $100 dress, or do I really want it? And I convert it to a need and I buy it because I say, oh, I don't have anything to wear, so I'm buying this. So we condition ourselves and confuse our wants with needs. So it requires that kind of rethinking, right? And you could reflect by seeing like, how many clothes have I actually worn? And I realized, despite the fact that I thrift and, I borrow and everything, even me myself, I tend to wear my favorites more often. And especially with the pandemic, I've not used 80% of my wardrobe. And that led me to rethink myself. Yeah. And also asking that, what is wrong in borrowing, right? If I borrow, if I'm only going to wear it, once or twice, is there an issue with borrowing, right? Or just, renting it from someone for some time and then not buying it? And can't less be more, right? Since when did we start believing that having more is cooler than having something good? And isn't that a better use of money? That you buy smart, you buy something good that lasts you, that gives you a better experience, and you enjoy it. It's a better use of your money. And finally, I think also something very personal is, who are you dressing up for, right? Is it yourself or is it someone else? Again, these are very individual questions. I request all of you to ask that to yourself and figure out where you are at, right? But it's something that I think we need to start doing, because somehow post-industrial revolution and when mass production came in, consumerism and rampant mass consumerism and the fact that more and more is good somehow, came into our lives. And we really need to, pause and rethink and see that, whether we are actually utilizing whatever we tend to, buy, right? And maybe we should rethink our consumption practices. Now, as a brand, so this is me talking to brands like my own or others who also need to start rethinking, right? Because you all and we all as consumers and individuals can only do something. But if the producers do not take responsibility and also start rethinking their approach, their methodology, then change is not going to happen. It's all the actors who are part of the supply chain have a role to play, right? And therefore, there are some questions that they need to ask too. Again, what I'm sharing with you is not really the most comprehensive, but my aim is to, spark a thought, right? And a pause maybe for people to see that are we really, doing the right things, or should we be rethinking our approach? And therefore, as brands, are they part of the problem or the solution, right? Are they adding to more waste, or are they looking at ways in which, clothes or whatever we wear can be made better, sustainable? And isn't making better more important than making more? Because when you make better, you have more loyal customers. People will want to come back to you because they've had a better experience with whatever you sold to them or you provided to them. And also having a longer life cycle actually creates a better engagement with the customer than a short one. Otherwise, do you remember when you go to, say, these, I would say these, fast fashion or these, stores where there's a lot of discount happening? I don't think you recall the experience you've had, but it's more of, I got a good deal, right? So therefore, for a brand, they possibly need to rethink that what is their strategy. Are they looking at mass, or they're looking to create more engagement where they have better relationship? And also the fact that can they stand for something which is beyond consumerism, right? Beyond having more. And also finally, the thought process always is that if you make something high quality, it has to be exorbitantly expensive. And I think that's where the whole rethinking has to happen, that if we work towards, creating more sustainable production supply chains, then even high quality can be accessible and affordable, and more people can have that rather than them, buying cheap clothes, which really don't last, which get torn and then get thrown. And finally, on the regulatory bodies. So again, these are, very few recommendations. A lot is needed to be done. But again, it's a triangle. It's where, we need the government, the regulatory bodies to actually support this. And therefore, what are needed? Because the whole world of fashion is not just toxic for environment. Actually, the largest violations of labor laws and oppression does happen in the fashion industry, and it's been a talk for a while. So I think stricter laws will make people, follow the rules better, will make them walk towards the path of ethical practices better. There have to be stricter laws on production, right? How they make, where they get it from, enforcing traceability. Where are you getting your raw materials from, right? Who are the producers, right? What are they getting paid? And honestly, also, while you will penalize the ones who do not follow the right practices, I think you need to applaud and support the ones who are taking the right step, which means, are you having, laws or say practices which actually support local innovation and revival of slow living, where, smaller brands or these kind of boutique brands are actually supported when they, take up ethical and correct and fair practices. And essentially thinking on whether we want to thrive or whether we just want to chase this linear path, because when we chase linear path, we really compromise on a lot of aspects. And I think the regulatory bodies have to think on that, and I think be very strict about poor quality and impose extended producer responsibility, which basically means that if you make something, you need to know what can be done with it once it reaches its end of life. And are you actually supporting your buyers and your consumers to deal with it the right way? And this actually is being discussed a lot in the plastic space, but fashion and plastic actually overlap a lot. And therefore, this is something that needs to be strongly taken up and dealt with. Quite a bit of work is happening, but more needs to be done. So this is on an overall level. Now you might be thinking, okay, Aparna, you've shared all this, but what do I do immediately, right? You're talking to me here. So what does slow mean for me? And what do I do immediately is Here, I know as someone who is a fashion brand representing one, but I'm asking you to refuse, reduce, and reuse. So please don't buy if you don't really need it, right? Reduce that buying and reuse what you have, right? Because seriously, we don't need that much. I mean, there are enough facts and stats available. And for you all who are actually part of a change making community or people who are curious about this, support and participate in our thrifting and sharing economy. So do that, right? Make it cool, right? Make it acceptable. Share, resell, reuse, and essentially support that. And what that can lead to is you will be post pandemic. So many small businesses have gotten affected, and so many people have lost source of employment. Support revival of repair and repurpose businesses. Actually, the Western world is embracing it again, and we had it right in Asia. We've had this practice of reusing an item. As our grandparents and parents used to do that. So I think we need to bring it back and bring back the repair and repurpose economy, right? And support these tailors, these seamstresses, etc., and tell them, okay, let's repair. I'd like to reuse it again rather than just throw it, because it does land up in the landfill. And yeah, I've sort of inserted myself here, but yes, support businesses like us, because we do believe in walking the talk, and we actually offer a lifetime repair and return guarantee. And there are others like us. So please do that. And essentially, I would say buy right and not more, right? And it really has to start with us. And what we could do is an anti-fashion movement where, I wear what I wear and what I enjoy and, what I like, rather than having the pressure of wearing what, others make it seem to be. And finally is please start asking questions. And that's related to my next slide, which is what this has led to is something called as greenwashing. And you need to start asking questions, right? Whenever anyone comes and says that, oh, we are so-and-so brand, including us, right? Please ask us where we get our materials from. Who makes the clothes that we are selling to you? Who are the people behind? How fair are we paying them, right? How we manage our waste. Ask for data, because if you're paying us and buying items from us, it's our obligation to share it with you. And it's your right as a consumer. It's your right to information to know what happens and how things reach you, and also face a reality that it's not easy. So I'll have to be very honest to you. Slow fashion is really called slow fashion because it is slow. And what does that mean is we take time in getting things right? We don't just consume for the sake of consuming, but when we take time to make things right, means we are relooking at processes and trying to make them better, and it is not easy. So therefore, I cannot claim at this stage, and I'll be very honest, that I have completely greened my supply chain. No, I'm in a journey, and it's very tough. And I can share with you some facts that bamboo cotton, which seems to be the latest fad, is actually not made in Indonesia. It's largely made in China and Taiwan. The process is actually not eco-friendly. The lyocell process it's toxic. It releases a lot of chemicals. And the one that is actually correctly done is a highly expensive process. So there's a eco-friendly and non-eco-friendly process. And when you buy these things, you should ask that, where are you getting this from? And do you know which process they are using? And at least if it matters to you, you stop endorsing it just because, somebody has put that eco brand. And anything that is recycled, made from these recycled bottles, etc., please do rethink, because anything that's recycled from poly and artificial fibers will eventually release, microplastics. So wearing them is going to release microplastics into your bodies, into the system again. So there possibly needs to be better ways to deal with it. But again, it's your choice, but please do ask. And it's your right as a consumer to ask these questions and don't just accept, because there's a lot of, information floating around. And often we are, misguided into thinking that we are, making a positive difference, while we might be actually being part of a problem unintentionally, right? And basically look at reuse repeat value. So it's better to buy a high quality item because then it will last you long, and ask the brand or the organization you're buying from to say that if anything happens to it, how you're going to support me? What do I do with this? And they should be, taking the initiative to support you with that. And if they don't, then possibly it should affect your buying decision that you want to buy from them again. And these are the ways in which I think we all need to start, rethinking our approach towards fashion, and also, collaborate, share, learn, and thrive. And what I mean by that is, it is a very tough journey. I'll be very honest, because it's very tough to find better alternatives. And therefore, the secret lies in collaborating, finding similar minded individual brands working together, co-sourcing, sharing resources and learning, because then only we can, fight against in, positive manner of overconsumption. Sorry, I'm just being very butterfingery. But anyway, I'm moving to my last slide. And my last slide, I owe the ownership to Earth Company, right? And it's essentially highlighting the regenerative way of being that we need to have. And there is one example that is of society. I've taken fashion as an example, and I'm just going to take you through the 4 phases that we believe the Earth is in, right? So currently, I believe we are in that, intersection of Earth 1.0 and Earth 2.0. And for fashion, we are somewhere where, on one side, there is still rampant production overconsumption happening. Brands like Shein, which release 22 collections in a fortnight, are there, right? Where it's take, make, use, waste. Or there are also people like us who are becoming aware, conscious consumers, that this is not sustainable. This linear take, make, waste approach is not sustainable, and we need to start making amends. So we need to start rethinking. And the next stage is for us to prolong our life on the earth as humans would be to actually champion businesses, habits that support circularity, right? That are get the both regulatory and business support to survive and thrive. And we cut down on overuse. So we really start from ourselves and then we amplify. And finally, Earth 4.0 is a regenerative Earth where really, we have figured out ways. So it's tied with innovation, because it cannot just be the similar approach. So looking at alternative materials and natural fibers and other innovative, materials which do harm and do less harm and prolong the life of, whatever items that we use in our lives, so that they have an extended life, and in fact, if possible, an infinite life, so that they continue to regenerate and, support, and hence help our life, on this earth to be prolonged to a certain level. Right. And I've intentionally left the space blank below, because this is for you to figure out, like, what role do you want to play, as far as, Earth 1.0 to Earth 4.0, the journey is concerned, and pick up an area that you're passionate about and figure out. And that's it. And I'm here now for your questions. Thank you for your patient listening. Right. Terima kasih.
Thank you, Aparna. Awesome.
Thank you.
Lots of thought-provoking questions. And yeah, I'm sure a lot of people have questions, and there were some comments in the chat box already. And I just shared in the chat box as well about this Earth 4.0 concept. Just as background, it's something that we at Earth Company use to understand the vision that we want to achieve. And we're in this transition from a degenerative world to a sustainable world, where sustainability is trying to address all the negativity, all the problems that we create. And circularity is a net zero. It's an energy efficient net zero. But that's not the end goal. The circular economy is probably not the end goal. There's probably something more net positive, more regenerative. And so we're asking ourselves this question about how can we be more regenerative in everything that we do. And we're asking our impact heroes also, how can you articulate and also describe the evolution that we're making towards this new vision. Yeah, and in terms of the presentation, it was, to me, the big, takeaway was really about balance. Like, how do we balance all these factors, right? Being the community empowerment, profitability, sustainability. How do you balance, just everything? I mean, there's so much tension in all these things that we talk about, right? And I think the most thought-provoking part was when you mentioned that you should stop buying, right? And as a brand, to tell people not to buy, I think reminds all of us the ad that Patagonia put out, don't buy this jacket. And I think that's a really interesting question. And in some ways, like, we as an eco hotel, are trying to run a conscious, sustainable business. But in some ways, in order to reduce emission, the best way is for people not to travel at all, right? And so people ask a lot, question about how do we make tourism more sustainable? Like, do we just ask people not to travel at all? And so in some ways, conscious, sustainable businesses are, by definition, self-contradictory, right? And we live in this very, very interesting tension. And maybe we can start off from there, Aparna. Just how do we resolve this self-contradiction that we as, conscious, regenerative businesses, are? Yeah.
So I think first things first, there is never no impact, right? I mean, the moment we exist, we are taking, right? So I guess what I try to say is we have to try and head towards a path of minimizing negative impact. And in a fun way, I say we should all endeavor towards trying to suck a little less each time, because we are actually taking a lot. Right. And the way to work towards it is, I agree with you, because it is self-contradictory. I'm a brand here. You are also running an eco hotel. So what do we do is to buy right then, right? If you cannot do zero, you can definitely minimize, right? And when you travel, can you travel light, right? And travel right, which means choose the ones which are more transparent, clear about what they're trying to do. For example, Patagonia, they openly say they are a capitalist consumer brand, but they say we're also trying to work on this, right? So you buy my jacket, but I'm also offering you this opportunity to reuse this jacket. I'm giving you opportunity to get it repaired and use it over a longer period, rather than sell you a substandard item that will only last certain, cycles, right? And similarly, with us is, being honest and open about where we are, and people also differentiating between want and need. Because for me, I'll tell you, it was really eye-opening how much we confuse our wants with our needs, right? And I think start from there, because everyone is at a different stage, and it's not that people should stop buying from tomorrow. Right. But when you start to buy, can you rethink? Is it available in some other way? Or at least can you buy from someone who's accessible to you, so that you know who made it? And, you have, and you can then, work around it. Because I think this is where the regenerative part will come in. Regeneration won't happen if we are buying from places we don't even know, right? Where someone sitting in some corner is making something and paid 1/100th of the price that is paid 1/100th of the price that you pay to buy that item. And there's such kind of inequality.
Yeah.
So I think this is where we start, and step by step is what I say. Right?
Yeah.
We don't have to change the world, just change ourselves a bit.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think honesty and transparency is such a key concept here, right? And I think connected to that is vulnerability. I think vulnerability as a business, you know, that we do have to make profit to survive. And, you know, everything that we do is not going to be regenerative, right? And in order for, you know, for us to be actually in this commercial world, we have to actually pollute, and we have to engage in negativity, right? Negative, environmentally or socially or whatever it is. And so it's really facing those realities and saying, look, we're not perfect. We're vulnerable. We have so many things that we need to deal with. And I think it's that kind of vulnerability and transparency that the consumers are increasingly appreciative of. I think that's the big shift. You know, I think vulnerability in the old times was seen as just weakness, but now it's actually becoming more of a unique selling point, I think, for a lot of brands. We have a lot of questions. I think Toby is quite active, so I'll invite Toby to maybe quickly introduce yourself and then ask one or maximum two questions that you might have. You're muted, Toby.
Hi guys, greetings from Lombok. My daughter Ella is at the school. I've been in manufacturing for 25 years. We've had factories for over 40 years in China, not in the garment business, but also in the cut and sew business. But I have a lot of friends in the garment business, and you know, it's really driven by the brands and the retailers. And I think you have to differentiate between. You were just saying producers. You have to differentiate between the brands and where they're located and what the legislation is there, because that's what we as a manufacturer always have to go by. And if I just make something that because I'm conscious nobody will buy, I can't survive as a manufacturer either. And I think legislation is definitely the key. I know that Europe has been doing quite something for past retail legislation. It's not my main subject, so I'm not on top of it. But I think that will really push the people. And the other problem is, if you're looking at 4.0 or maybe even 5.0, what we were just discussing in the chat for compostable or the products that really can go back to nature afterwards, it depends where you go at. Because if you're looking at 2.0, Germany got so good at 2.0 that now the recycling industry in Germany is so huge and nobody's thinking anymore when they design their product, what happens to it afterwards? Because, there's someone who's going to recycle it. And there's huge money in it. So I think whatever 0.0 you're looking at, you have to see, is that really the perfect final version if it then goes into legislation?
Yeah. Thank you, Toby. Very valid points. Exactly. So like I said, it's from the producer to the brands and or retailers, as you call it, and which is where, right? It's the big shot.
It can only go the other way. It can only go the other way around, though. It can only be from the government to the brand to the producer, because me as a manufacturer and producer, I have to go by, and I have in my business very strict regulations by the regulations that are required for that specific market or country, or that brand requires. I cannot tell the brand you have to change what you're doing. I can choose who I don't sell to. So I'm already since many years won't sell to Walmart, I won't sell to Target, and I do have pretty much, luckily, a choice that I don't have to sell to some people and tell them don't even show up at my office. But still, it has to come from top down back through the supply chain. And even if I do show innovative products, I did the first. I know now you said it's not so good, but I believe we did the first ever. I had the first patent for solar backpacks. We did the first ever PET bottle bags in the world using that material at least 18 years ago. But you need the brand to pick up on it. Now maybe there's more acceptance for that. But like when we first come up with these ideas, I can't sustain a business with that.
Yeah. Great.
So I agree with you, but also no, like I said, it has to be a tripartite, or you can say four-part quadpartite relationship is top down, but there has to be bottom up, right? If we demand, it will happen, right? Innovations and markets show up because also consumers get together, and which is why I said that there is this slow living, slow movement happening. It's just that when we create more awareness around it, when we make it more acceptable, accessible, it will become a mainstream alternative. Currently, it's a boutique niche, right? And also expensive, I agree, which means it's not going to be accessible to a larger section of the population. So it's always a mix because till we demand it, it doesn't become a need, right? So as more people start demanding, asking question, it becomes a need that, oh yeah, I think this is something that people are asking for, and people start to look up. Also, what's happening as far as regulation is concerned, of course there's a lot of ground to be covered, but is that with more and more requirements of ESG and all these norms, whether brands like it or not, for whatever are their internal reasons, they are being looked upon, right? So they'll have to start looking at their supply chains and processes, whether they like it or not. It's just that consumer power combined, with push can actually make the transition a bit faster. Otherwise, it'll just move at a slowish pace is what I would say, right?
Yeah.
And
right.
Yeah, that's what I would say. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. We have other people making comments and questions. So we'll invite Lara, Sophia, and Sophie in that order. Lara, do you want to share your question, perspective?
Well, I'm Laura's daughter, Luana Bernardi. And my question was, Aparna meant that recycling isn't as good either because it can release microplastic. And I had the idea of making clothes out of old clothes, like recycling old clothes, or upcycling as it's the correct term. And what if that's not the solution? What is the solution with all the old clothes? Because people have thrown so many clothes away and they will continue it, especially young people and especially my generation and the generation under me. And that's a huge problem.
Yeah. A very good question, Lara. Let me also clarify, right? So when I say recycling is a lot of the fibers, right, that are used currently in our clothing are artificial fibers, right, that originate from petroleum, which is converted into different types of plastics, right? So and then it's used in different industries. And then one of the movements that's currently happening, I won't name any brands, is that to use that in the clothing. Okay. And then that makes you feel, wow, it's been converted into a clothing. So therefore, I'm doing good. What happens is anything that we wear, we will wash, right? And the moment you will wash it, put it in your washing cycles, etc., it's gonna be landing up on your bodies and on your surroundings, right? So possibly certain types of plastics are not suitable to be made into clothes, but something else. And that is what we need to question, that what kind of plastics are these? What you are actually talking about is upcycling, which is very good because what you're doing is you're preventing it from reaching landfill, right? Because eventually what happens is, and the other complication I'll add is mixed fabrics. When you have cotton mixed with lycra, mixed with something else, right? These are mixed fabrics. You have a natural fiber with an artificial fiber. Indonesia, very limited. I think there's just one company that I know of can separate that also at scale, which means when we are buying, honestly, anything with mixed fabric, we are better off using it till it's literally to shreds or making something from it, because the moment we'll try to give it to a recycling facility, they will not be able to deal with it at this stage, right? Europe is pretty good at it. Italy, Germany, they are doing, right? Again, at scale. So therefore, I think the initiative you're doing is really good, right? If you can take a clothing, turn it to something else, which people can then reuse in their lives in form of a clothing or something else for a longer period, you're already minimizing the negative impact, right? Because you're preventing it from reaching the landfill sooner than later.
Yeah.
Is the question. Yeah. That's what I want to clarify.
Right. Thank you. Mm-hmm. Aparna, before we move on to the next question, maybe you can share your contact details in the chat box before we forget, so that anyone who wants to continue the conversation can do so after this. Next one, Sophia. I don't know, it's the iPhone, the Sophia. About second-hand clothing market. Do you want to share your comments / question? If you're still there.
Yeah, so Sophia is here. Oh my
God. So many computers on their side. It's like a labyrinth trying to get out of the echo. You guys want to try again? She just gave a comment. Okay. Sophie, do you want to be there, Sophie? Oh, maybe she's not. She was. I saw her earlier. Anyone else with questions or comments? Chris, do you want to jump in with your wisdom?
Okay, I'm just getting out of the room so then she can talk, because there was microphones, there's people here. So Sophia.
Chris is trying to talk, but we can't hear.
Sorry. Chris is muted. So Chris, wait a little bit.
I just read this in a newspaper. I think the clothing, secondhand clothing, will be bigger in 10 years and double than the fast fashion. Did you heard about that? And do you know something about that?
As in, fast fashion is increasing and growing?
Yes.
Of course, which is why I said which is why I said we need to come together and do like an anti-fast fashion movement, right? Because it's a bit like any other industry, right? The rich getting richer, oppression is still there, inequalities are still there, and therefore, either we give up or, we form a collective of people, start small, but, stay true to it and make it happen. Because what is not spoken about is slow fashion is also coming back, right? And especially Gen Zs or Gen Z and millennials are becoming more conscious than their previous generations.
More aware. Yeah.
Yes. So I think we start by asking, where is it coming from, right? And stop buying poor quality, because is it better to buy something for $10 that you can wear twice, or maybe buy something for $50 that you can wear longer and then turn it into something else, right? It also makes a wise buying decision. So as I said, this is where it has to start, and it's always a triangle, right? It can't be one. It can't be just consumer. It can't be just government. We can't keep waiting for government, and it can't be just brand and retailers, right? So, or manufacturers, right? So we all have to exercise our voice, right? So I am talking to you as an individual, Aparna, who walks the talk, and also as someone who stands for a brand, right? So I am trying to do that both in my personal and professional lives, and I think we should try to see if we can replicate that similarly, right? And actually not succumb to our wants and make conscious decisions, right? It starts from there.
Yeah. Congratulations for your work. Keep on going.
Hey, there is Sophie who also here that wants to ask a question. So
yeah, I'm Sophie. Hello.
Hi.
Talking about the anti-fast fashion movement. And of course, there is, and it happens this week to be Fast Fashion Revolution Week.
Agreed.
And before I ask the question, I do want to give a shout out to the swap event that's happening in Ubud in the Blue Bear tomorrow. So swap your clothes. You can bring 10 pieces of clothes and you can swap your clothes as an anti-fast fashion movement. And on Saturday, there is a secondhand fair clothing market in Karabokan that I, from Slow Fashion Bali, organize. So the question to you as a slow fashion brand from Toraja, Melo, is how do you market your brand? I mean, how do you reach your consumers? Is it more B2B or B2C? I'm very interested as a slow fashion brand that from the outside looks quite big. how you do it, because there are also very many small slow fashion brands, and it's hard for them to continue their business. It's just spending money.
Agree, totally agree, and that's why we have survived, right, the past few years. So my answer to you is we do both B2B, B2C, because B2B is what can bring in sustainability, right? And then you do that smartly, right, with the right partners. And secondly, what do you do with other, what do other smaller brands do? And exactly that's what we are actually heading towards. Is we're actually going to be launching a multi-brand collective where we want to support brands like ours who believe in our values but do not have that access to market. And this is where collaboration and sharing comes in, wherein you don't play the volume game, but why don't you play the assortment and variety game? Exactly, where you offer consumer more variety rather than just saying buy more. So it will be collaboration, honestly, Sophie. So we are going to do that, and we are looking for more people to support and share. I mean, this is how we'll be able to make change.
Yes, I think you're completely right. I think that David against Goliath is not going to work here. I really think many Davids should work together.
Indeed.
And do it all together, and then you are more diverse, and people can then really choose instead of really competing against each other. Just work together. Thank you so much for sharing.
Yeah, and the other point I would like to highlight is collective sourcing, which is what we are working towards. Is because as an individual, as a smaller brand, I don't have so much of purchasing, right, for my raw materials. But if I collaborate with few others, we then become a collective, and then we can also command that from the manufacturer or the raw material producer to follow, because we will then be having volumes enough for them to regard what we want. So I think that is where the strength and the process lies. Rather than fighting individual battles, we have to come together as brands, as individuals.
Thank you.
All right, great. I know we're getting close to the end of our 1 hour, and I'm sure there are many questions and comments, but thank you so much, Aparna, for your time. I forgot to mention that I actually use the Toraja Melo wallet. So I try to be my ambassador to Toraja Melo in my very small, in small ways. And I hope you guys can also buy or not buy something to be an ambassador. I'll hand it over back to Carol and Chris to wrap it up. But thank you so much, Aparna, and everyone for your questions.
Thank you so much, Aparna. So good and so inspiring to see people doing great work that you do, and also so important for all of us to be aware and do our part. Yeah. So thanks for sharing. Thanks for sharing your wisdom. Thank you, Tomo, for always bringing people here to the community for us to listen. So thank you, Aparna, for being here. Thank you, Tomo. Thank you, everybody. And yeah, I hope that it was an inspiring session for everybody as it was for me. Thank you.